Hello, my name is Ariel.
And my name is Ellis.
From Bach Bros Studio. We're here today at the Harvard Kennedy School to interview Professor David King, who is an expert in politics.
We're so excited. Are you ready? Let's go! Hello, Professor King, and thank you for making the time to meet with us today.
Oh, happy to. It's great to see you.
Politics is a term that is not very easy to understand. So can you please explain to us what politics means and what politicians do exactly?
No, have you noticed that people hate the term politics and they don't like politicians? And that's because a lot of people, they don't like somebody else being in charge. Politics ultimately is about a political system. And different countries have very different political systems. Political systems to help people have power to do things on behalf of the community, or in some societies on behalf of only those who are wealthy or of their small group. Politics ultimately is about the allocation of values. It's about things that you deeply believe this is how it should be, or maybe you have a different idea about how things should be. How does a society, like a big family, decide what the answer needs to be? So politics ends up being about negotiation in the United States, we hope. Compromise. Maybe you get something and you get something else. And very importantly, politics is about shared values that can't be solved in the marketplace. So the marketplace is like you go to the store and you buy things and there's money. And if everybody likes that product, they just spend more and more money and there's more and more produced. But with things like clean air or freedom or happiness, the market, like a grocery store, can't supply that efficiently. So politics, again, is about the authoritative allocation of values. What do you think the right thing to do is? What do you think the right thing to do is? And then how do we compromise to try and get it done? Now, much of the time, probably even half the time, the things you care deeply about, you're going to lose because the other party might get their way. And so instead of just accepting it, a lot of people make fun of politicians, or they say politics is bad and politics is wrong. No, politics is, without resorting to violence, politics is about fairly choosing which ideas are going to win out. That's what politics is.
How do you study politics? Do you study it by lived experiences or by observing how the society works or by reading books?
Definitely all three of those. And usually the first place where we experience politics is in our own families, where you have a parent or two parents, or brothers or sisters, and somebody has to decide, like, where are we going to have dinner? How are we going to choose where we're going to have dinner? So you live with this sense of compromising. In families that have only one child, the child doesn't have to compromise as much. And then when that child grows up, the child from a single family, a single child from a family is less likely to be willing to compromise on politics. So the first place is we live the experience of politics in our own lives. But then the institutions of politics are what we start learning in school and in books. And it's made up of all of these different rules. Like, wow, here's one called voting. Old book. What are the rules on who gets to vote and how it actually happens? So I spend a lot of time understanding the very specific rules and procedures for politics to happen. And I try and make sure that those rules and procedures are fair. Because if politics is about your values winning over somebody else's values, you can imagine some people will try and cheat. So it's very important that you learn all of the rules of how it works. And then finally, you blend in by studying people who've been particularly good at the art of politics. And it's just like If someone were going to a business school and they wanted to make a lot of money, they would study someone who's made a big company. And in the United States, if we want to learn about politics, we want to study someone like this, another wonderful book. This is somebody who became president, but he was the head of the United States Senate for a long time. And his name is Lyndon Johnson. So I read a lot of these kinds of books. I try and understand what were the rules that they had to operate under. And then in every person's life, I always want to know, where did they come from? What do they care about deeply? What was their family like? Because when you grow up, if you choose to go into politics, the kinds of things you're experiencing right now in your family or with your parents' friends or at school will have a big impact on how you treat people and how people treat you. So a very good question is all three. Lived experience of our own, learning the rules and procedures, and then studying in the lives of real people what's worked and what hasn't worked.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good thing I had these books right here.
When we watch the news or read newspapers, it seems like politics are dividing people rather than uniting them.
Absolutely.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's a good observation, and it's really disturbing. And throughout American history, there have been periods when the news media actually helped to unite us, but very often we've become more and more divided. Now, when I was young, which is in the 1960s and 1970s, there were only a few places where you could even get the news. So you had a newspaper, and I helped to deliver when I was a little kid, and we had 3 television channels. Only three. Yeah, only 3. And so the way that these television channels made money is they would try and present news so that everybody they wanted to get everybody watching them. And they were trying to maximize the size of their audience. So they presented information that was kind of moderate, not hard on one side or hard on the other. And then when the internet, the World Wide Web, burst into America really in a meaningful way in the mid to late 1990s, then it wasn't just a couple of television stations and some newspapers. There was all these sources of information coming into our brains. And instead of going to the thing that summarized it all and was moderate, people got overwhelmed. All of this they're taking in all of this information, and it's confusing to them. What happens when people are overwhelmed with information? They try and feel comforted. They try and settle this feeling of being overwhelmed by paying attention to somebody who says at the end of the day, you were right. Don't worry, it's not going to be so bad. Or you were right and you should be scared. And so in the 2000s, we've seen all of these newspapers and television stations, internet sources that are trying to scare people and divide people because they want you to come back to their site and come back to their site and come back to their site. So the news media is a huge part of dividing us.
If I want to become a politician, what do I need to do and what do I need to prepare?
Well, remember I already said that people don't like politics and they don't like politicians. So I would say don't tell people you want to be a politician. Say you want to help people. You want to help your family. You want to help your community. You want to help your school. And live the kind of life that shows that you're listening to others and that you're caring about them. And that really makes you then an attractive person in politics. Because when we are thinking about who do I want to vote for, we want someone who's like us and cares about people like us and maybe thinks about the world in ways like us, but might be a little bit smarter than us, might be a little more patient than us, might show more interest in others than us, right? So I want you to be patient. I want you to listen to others. I want you to think about what's best for the community. And then when it comes time, maybe there's an office that you run for. But politics is about helping people realize their vision in ways that the marketplace can't. And there are politicians all around us, right? Ministers, pastors, nurses, they're politicians. They're listening. Your teachers are politicians. I think we have to have a much broader view about what it means to be in politics, because this ultimately has to be a country that's built around many, many individuals caring about each other. So keep doing what you're doing. Listen, ask questions. And then finally, something I work with a lot of politicians. Those who are particularly good have an open mind. They're willing to change their mind. They're willing to say, maybe I was wrong. Now, they don't make it on TV as often as we might hope, but that's who's going to be effective. So keep asking questions and listen to what's inside other people's hearts.
Do you think politics can unite our country and people? If so, how? But if not, why not?
That's a hard question. The answer is yes, politics can unite our country. Usually it happens when there's a big crisis, like an attack on the country and a war, and people say, oh my gosh, we got to hang together. But that's not sustainable. The way that politics can, I think, unite the country is when we are honest about our values, a positive vision for the future, a way to bring people together. And in the course of a political campaign, like the one we're having right now, one that's focused on positive messages can be much more uniting. So individually, it might make sense to try and tear down the other party or the other candidate. We need to find ways as individuals and then within our communities to listen to each other and to lift each other up. It's very hard. It's hard because the news media is more divisive than ever, and the candidates are divisive, and the big interest groups and moneyed interests behind the candidates are often wanting to divide us. But look how long this country has lasted. It's the longest constitutional democracy in the history of the world. And we've been through some much worse times than we are now. And I think we can become united around that idea of representing the broader common good.
Well, there you have it. Politics is a very important part of our society. So let's hope our politicians can use them wisely to unite our country. For more, follow Bach Bros Studio. See you next time.
Bye.